good, YouTube? In today's video, I'm going to be talking about the difference between building your own e-commerce brand as opposed to building a dropshipping company. If you don't know me, my name is Dahl. I'm the founder and CEO of 3 Nails. We're a premium faith-based activewear company based out of Minneapolis, Minnesota. I built my clothing brand out of my garage over 5 years ago and have now since turned it into a 7-figure company. So without further ado, let's hop into it. So right off the bat, we're going to be talking about the pros and cons to starting a dropshipping company. Number one, you do not have to physically hold any inventory yourself, which goes hand in hand with number two, which is you do not have to rent any big warehouse space. You don't have to purchase any space for your warehousing. And number three, you don't have to have any employees physically picking and packing your orders on a daily basis. Number four, you do not have to handle any returns or exchanges for your company. That is very attractive, let me tell you, because for my brand, we physically do all of the returns and exchanges in-house. It's a very tedious process, which again, you have to hire employees to do that work for you. And last but not least, number five, probably the most attractive thing about starting a dropshipping company is the scalability. You can scale a dropshipping company so much faster than you can building an actual e-commerce brand. Mainly because starting out, if you're like me, you don't have much money, you don't have any investors, you don't have any business partners that are willing to throw in a ton of money to buy tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of units. You're usually just going to be getting a couple hundred units for your first order and scaling that on Facebook ads, email marketing, just organically, you sell out pretty quick. And if you get a manufacturer overseas, you are waiting constantly for 2-3 months, sometimes even longer than that, to receive physical product in-house. So with a dropshipping company, you can scale it so much faster because the inventory doesn't run out. You're not physically holding it yourself. So it's coming straight from the manufacturer in China or another country. And when your customers go online to actually purchase it, once that sale goes through your online website, the manufacturer in China is shipping it right from their facility directly to your customer's door. So over time, as you're continuing to scale your Facebook ad spend, you can continue to increase that ad spend day to day, week to week, thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars, and not worry about inventory constraints because your manufacturers continue to produce those items and it's shipping directly from them. So that's something that is very attractive to someone like me who's an actual e-commerce brand owner that I can't do. I have to physically order in bulk the inventory from our manufacturers to ship directly to my warehouse to hold it ourselves and distribute ourselves. So inventory constraint is a huge issue that I per se have to deal with that a dropshipping company does not. All right, for the most part, that's the pros of running and starting a dropshipping company. So what are the cons? Number one is control. You are at the sole discretion of the manufacturer or supplier that you work with in China or whichever country you produce from. Number two is shipping lead times. This potentially can have a very negative interaction with your customer for the first time. Sometimes these companies take 3 to 5 days, sometimes take a week to fulfill the order. And then once it's actually shipped out, because it's coming from China and you want to save on shipping costs, you're probably just going to be shipping it through a standard shipping option, which is going to take anywhere from 14 to 21 days, potentially even longer. So the negative consequences from that is your customer interaction. When your customers are receiving their packages 3 weeks later, 4 weeks later, and then they look at the actual shipping label and it's coming from China, it's just not going to have a good look for you. They're going to think that it's a company that's based out of China, not a company that's based out of the US. And especially for my audience, being more conservative, our demographic would not like the fact that our packages are coming directly from China or whichever country, we would source through. Number three is quality control. You have no control over what's being sent out to your customer. You don't know if there's a rip in the t-shirt. You don't know if there's tags that are loose. Those are things that you're usually able to catch before you ship it out in your own warehouse. Most of these suppliers don't really care. It's just all about volume, so they just grab it and ship it and go. They don't really care about that. And if you're watching this video, I'm assuming you have a clothing brand or aspire to have a clothing brand. You can kind of apply this to your own self if you're trying to ship out different products. But in the clothing world, coming from China, they have a lot smaller measurements over there. So an American size medium fits me a lot larger than a Chinese medium. Chinese medium could honestly fit an extra small on me or potentially at the biggest a small. So that's something that you definitely need to figure out if you go the drop shipping route, is making sure that your measurements are on par for American sizing. Number four, which is returns and exchanges. Returns and exchanges are something that you're gonna have to figure out because you're not able to do it yourself. It's gonna be expensive. You're either gonna have your customer pay for the return to ship it back to China, or you're gonna have to eat that cost yourself. That's pretty expensive to deal with. Rather than having a customer ship it to you right here in the United States, it's a lot cheaper to deal with. Last but not least, number 5 is being unique in the product development space. With a dropshipping company, most of the time they're not gonna allow you to customize the garment. So for me, my brand, we can specifically tailor a hoodie, a t-shirt, shorts, whatever we want, centimeter by centimeter, how we want it to look, the fabric, the quality of it, the GSM, like the weight of the product. We can customize everything from front to back. So we work with suppliers that are called ODM or OEM, and that's what that means. With dropshipping companies, they don't allow you to customize anything. Maybe some do out there. For the majority of the most part though, they don't. You essentially just get to choose from a catalog, and then you have to put those on your website and then sell those products. And that is definitely a negative. When you're trying to compete against the other brands in this world, you have to be able to stand out. You don't want to look like everyone else, and that's definitely a negative. All right, so all in all, that's the pros and the cons of running and starting your own dropshipping company. Let's go to the other side now and talk about the pros and the cons of starting and building your own actual e-commerce brand. We're gonna start off with the cons right away. So number 1 is probably the most obvious: warehouse space. You're gonna have to either rent or purchase warehouse space. Majority of the time, you're not gonna buy anything right away. You're gonna go ahead and rent. So you're gonna have to negotiate your own terms. You're gonna have to go get warehouse space. You're gonna have to figure out how big of warehouse space do you need starting out. There's just a lot of those what ifs in the air. However, when you first start out, you don't have to go get a warehouse right away. You can do what I did. I started out in my little basement bedroom and moved it into my garage at my townhome. Even if you have an apartment, you can definitely house your own inventory in your house. But sooner than later, you're gonna have to go get a warehouse space. It's just inevitable. It's definitely a con. Number 2, operations. You're gonna have to figure out what systems to implement in your business, specifically in your warehouse. Now that you're physically holding your own product, you're gonna have to ship it out. You're gonna have to pick and pack the orders yourself. You're gonna have to fulfill it every day. When you're first starting out, fulfilling your orders through Shopify is great. But once you start scaling, you want to go through a system like ShipStation or Easy Ship, Shippo, all those different shipping systems out there. You're gonna have to figure out which one you want to choose and then implement that. That takes a while to get it implemented into your system, learn how to use it. You're gonna have to set up your own SKUs and barcodes. There's a whole massive headache you have to deal with when first setting up your systems and processes for the very first time. Number 3, hiring employees. Something that you don't have to worry about when running a dropshipping company. Building your own e-commerce brand, you have to have employees that are in the back of the warehouse, picking and packing and fulfilling your orders every single day, which adds on more of an overhead cost already. So as you can see, you're renting out warehouse space, you're hiring more employees to manage that. That's a lot of money. That's thousands of dollars each month that you don't have to worry about if you have a dropshipping company. And last but not least, number 4, inventory constraint or scalability. As I said earlier, it's a lot easier to scale a dropshipping company because you don't have to worry about inventory constraints. When running an actual e-commerce brand, you have to wait for your product to show up. So it makes scaling your brand a lot harder, because if your Facebook ads are really working well and you're increasing ad spend and you're selling a lot more product, once you sell out fast, you have to wait for more product to show up. You can't just hit a button and then a week later you got more product showing up. It's just not how it works with running a clothing brand. Especially if you have manufacturers overseas or suppliers overseas, it takes many months for you to receive your product. This just makes it very difficult to scale as an early entrepreneur. When I first started my brand out of my garage, the very first 2 years, I wasn't even profitable. It was very hard to scale my Facebook ad campaigns. And then once I finally started seeing some success with my Facebook ads, I started selling more product, obviously, and I had to wait months. I remember having a period in time where I didn't have product for 2 months on my website. It was a very, very hard time to navigate through. So going over the pros of running and owning your own e-commerce brand, starting off number 1, which is the most important one of all, is control. You don't get control with running a dropshipping company. Owning your own brand, you get control of the quality assurance, you get control over your own shipping lead times, you get control over the customer experience, the customer personalization, your returns and exchanges. For us, when we take in returns and exchanges, we'll make sure that we have a lint roller, that we're rolling everything to make it look just pristine. We have our employees fold it very nicely, put it back in the package, and then it's able to get back into the racks to ship out to the next customer. For a dropshipping company, they could be sending out a return or exchange with a bunch of dog hair on it, or that smells like cigarette smoke, or who knows. It's just you don't have the control over that like you would if you physically housed your own product. So number 2 is shipping lead times. So having your own physical warehouse, your own employees picking and packing your orders, fulfilling it within a timely manner within 24 hours, getting shipped out same day, your customers are able to experience a great positive experience by receiving their product within 3 to 5 business days. That is way better than your customers sitting there waiting for weeks for their package to arrive. Number 3, customer personalization. Again, you can find out ways to partner with suppliers and manufacturers when you have a dropshipping company, but it's just, you have more control when you have it in-house. For us, we put stickers in every single order. If customers place an order for a huge order, I'll go ahead and write a handwritten thank you card. You can't do that if you're using a dropshipping company. It's just personalization. That also goes hand in hand with customer service though too. So being able to have that customer personalization is so key and important to having your own e-com brand as opposed to dropshipping. And if you've watched any of my previous videos, you'll know I myself and my team really pride ourselves in going above and beyond for our customer. We want our customers to stay with us for life. We don't want them just to buy once from us. We want them to buy many, many times over, and we will go way out of our way for every single customer, and having our own physical product in-house here allows us to do so. Number 4, hiring employees. I did say that this is a con as far as overhead cost goes, but it's truly an investment. You're investing a salary into a person. And if you have a great employee, you're gonna see a return on that investment. And for me, this is all a part of the American dream, is being able to offer employment, be able to provide jobs to people in the community. That's something that's just self-fulfilling for me. So I definitely see that as a pro. And last but not least on the list is number 5, is building brand equity. I'm not saying that you can't build brand equity and having a dropshipping company, but this is the biggest differentiator. When you're building a dropshipping company, it's really here today and gone tomorrow. There's very few people that I've personally met or heard about that have started a dropshipping company and have been running that same exact company for 3 years, 5 years, 10 years plus. Usually you start a dropshipping company, you're trying to find winning products, always trying to find the next winning trend, and then it's gone. You basically milk out as much cash as you can, and then you're on to the next brand or the next winning product, and it's just constantly this vicious cycle. So dropshipping is great for building short-term cash, but it is not great for long-term equity. And when you have your own e-commerce brand, you're able to actually build brand equity. So brand equity is actually looking at a brand long-term. You are acquiring customers into your pipeline for your brand. This is something that these people are going to come back and purchase again and again and again. They understand the brand rather than the t-shirt that they bought with a cool saying or quote on it. They bought from us because of what the mission that our brand stands for. The minimalistic style and design that we portray at 3 Nails. This is something that you want every customer to see the vision of what your brand stands for at the end of the day. That they're really buying from the brand. They're not buying just a product. And when you continue building a successful company month after month, year after year, you start gaining something called equity. On your profit and loss statement, it's one thing, but on your balance sheet, you start gaining equity. And equity is very, very different than just a profit and loss statement. And you can choose to do what you want with that equity. You can just let that equity continue to pile up. You can take a withdrawal from that equity as an owner's distribution. You can take that equity to attract investors into your company and give them a certain percentage. You can eventually sell your company one day and exit out fully and really cash out if you want to. There's a lot of different ways that you can use that equity as leverage in a company. And that goes to my previous statement, is this is the biggest differentiator. Building real equity, long-term equity in a brand, 5 years, 10 years, potentially even 20 years from now. You're building this great equity in a real brand. This real equity allows you many different options in the future. It's just a long-term gain. It's a long-term play, something that you can't get with dropshipping. So all in all, guys, I really hope that you got some value from this. And if you're someone out there that is trying to really decide whether you want to go the dropshipping route or building a long-term business brand, I really hope that this video would help with that decision. I'm definitely biased on this. I try to be unbiased, right? I definitely see the pros in starting a dropshipping company, but if you really want to build a real brand, have a brand identity, do things the way that you want to, have the control, and be able to build long-term brand equity, I definitely highly suggest you start your own e-commerce brand. Don't go the dropshipping route. I just think that it's going to better serve you in the future, better serve your family as well. So that's it for today, guys. Love you all. God bless. See you next video. Peace.